was also posted in Syria and Iran and Turkey. He had an esteemed career, and we are we're very honored and blessed to have this launch ceremony happen at our institute. Now, I would like to hand the floor over to Ambassador Nadeem Riaz, President IRS, to please take the event forward.
Thank you, Zanera. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to welcome all of you to today's event. My worthy seniors are here. And let me tell you how the whole thing unfolded. Nader and I go back to our posting in South Africa in the early 90s. We developed a friendship, which we have kept over the years. And it is in 2021 that Nader walked into my office and he expressed his desire to publish the works of his illustrious father. I introduced him to the editorial board of this institute, and then rest is history. We worked on the articles which Ambassador Sheikh had written. We worked on the manuscripts which he had written. They were handwritten on Kashmir. They were then amalgamated together, referenced by the IRS team, and the first book on Kashmir was published like that. The second book was slightly, I think, a bit more complicated because Ambassador Sheikh, after his retirement, had written these articles which were published in The Nation. So to put them in a book, we had to get the permission from The Nation, which was obtained, and then the final work of sending all this to the press. Nader was kind enough to provide the moral support as well as the financial support to undertake this particular project. I did not know Ambassador Altaf Sheikh. He retired from service before I joined. But what I've heard of him is that he was a very kind person, a hard taskmaster, always was there to express his opinion. And you can see all that in his writings. He was never shy to give his views and ideas about a particular subject. He wrote extensively. He did not only write about the countries in which he served. He wrote on all subjects, including geopolitics and including culture and economy. I would like to thank the IRS team, Arish, the sub-editor Aiza, and all the support staff which typed these manuscripts and they put it together. And Nader, all this could not have been possible without your constant assistance, writing the foreword, reaching out to people. And then also I would like to specially thank Ambassador Kamran Niaz, who I had the honor of serving with when I was in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you, sir, for writing the foreword. And I hope you enjoy reading these two books, because remember, they were written a few years ago, or rather they were written decades ago. And some of the things which Ambassador Sheikh had predicted and written, they are quite relevant in today's world, today's contemporary environment. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the support. And my thanks to Nader Sheikh and to the IRS team for making this possible. Thank you very much. I would now like to request Ambassador Kamran Niaz for his comments.
है ना? I think ये जो है इसकी आवाज इतनी अच्छी नहीं थी. Anyway, let me first thank Nadeem for asking me over this morning. and Nader for asking me to say a few words about my experience with his father. Let me assure you that I won't tax your patience for very long, though I know that T word is not very popular these days. I landed in Turkey on the 3rd of March, 1974 as a language trainee, and Ambassador Sheikh arrived a week after that on the 10th of March. Since I was a language trainee, I was told that I had to take private lessons, and it was about 1 hour every day. So I thought that it's a great opportunity. I'll go for my private lessons for 1 hour every day, and then I'll goof off. But then Ambassador Sheikh called me. He says that तुम्हारी कितने बजे होती है class? I said that about 10 to 11 I go to the teacher. He says, so you will come to the embassy after that and you will do commercial work. So that was a great letdown for me. I said, I was here to have a good time and he's put me to work. So basically my experience with Mr. Sheikh was that he was an exceedingly good boss, but also a tough one. And he would sort of, give you a lot of work. For instance, he was going on a visit to Tehran, and he was going to be there for 3 or 4 days. So he knew, or perhaps realized, that I would not be, coming to the embassy for those 3 or 4 days. So he told me to write a report on the Turkish elections, which were going to take place soon thereafter. And he said that I want this report ready by the time I come back. So, not knowing anything, I had to do a lot of research about the Turkish constitution, the political parties, their manifestos, and whatever in the press, what are, who's going to win, what is going to happen. So the end result is that I end the 3-4 days working almost from morning till evening and without getting any sort of a relief. So what I learned basically from Mr. Sheikh were 1 or 2 important things. One was that accuracy is not a virtue, it is a necessity. And precision is as important as accuracy. And I remember that if he asked you to make a draft and you spend 3-4 hours doing whatever you could, and then you went to his office and dropped the draft with him, and on the way out, you were hanging around with some of your other colleagues, thinking that you have done your day's job. And by the time you get back to your office, the draft was right back on your table with a lot of, sort of a roadmap on it. And so you had to redo it again and then give it to him. And within 15 minutes, it will be again back with you. So one thing was that he would not sit on a draft for any sort of time. So that is another thing that I learned from him, the art of quick disposal and sort of quick thinking as well. Let me tell you another thing. I also learned his ability to judge a situation. His assessments were at times appear to be outlandish, but they prove to be correct. I'll give you just one example. In 1977, there was a delegation from Pakistan visiting Ankara, and they had been in Tehran before, and from there they had come to Ankara. It was led by Mr. Wasim Jafri. I think he was either Secretary Finance or Secretary Planning then, and they were, And at a dinner, they started, telling everybody that they were in Tehran and what a wonderful country Iran is and the amount of progress they have made and about the white revolution and, the prosperity. And Mr. Sheikh pipes in, he says, well, I don't give Shah Iran more than 2 years. So we were astounded, and everybody contradicted him. I said, how can you say that? I mean, Iran is making such a lot of progress. But anyway, in 79, I was in Colombo when Shah of Iran had to escape, and the government fell. And it wasn't more than 2 years. In fact, I think it was maybe 22 months. So, that tells you about the person's ability to judge a situation and not go by whatever is, on the surface, but to, really try to understand. So that's all that I would like to say. And especially just one more thing, which was that Begum Altaf Sheikh was perhaps the most gracious lady that I ever met. And I would say that she was such an asset and such a support for Mr. Sheikh that I don't think that without her, he would have been as successful as he really was. And Mrs. Sheikh, she passed away only, I think, last year or year before that. And so, it was a great team that the two of them had. So I think that really worked for them. Thank you very much.
Now that the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you, Kamran and Nadeem. We will expect your report on the Turkish elections, which are just coming up in May. So we look forward to your analysis. And sorry, before I start, one more thing. I just learned something about my father, what you said about the drafts coming back. Yeah. I didn't know that he did it so fast. Oh, yes. But a lot of my Citibank colleagues were told me I did something similar. So that's where it's coming from. Yeah, thank you. Well, respected ambassadors, dear friends, and my family, all here today, and the IRS team, thank you all for being here today. I mean, the warm words and feelings that you have expressed are really gratifying. I mean, it has taken us 2 years of work to get here. Nadeem knows that, and Arish and the team. My father, Ambassador Altaf Sheikh, started writing about regional geopolitical issues as soon as he retired in 1988. When I came back to Islamabad 4 years ago, after 27 years abroad, I discovered his handwritten manuscript on Kashmir in one of our cupboards, and files with all these newspaper clippings, which is now this thick book over there, the articles that he had written between 1988 and 1990, October 90, when he passed away at an untimely age. So he had written over 120 articles on geopolitical subjects. And as you mentioned, not only on the countries where he served, but on other geopolitical issues as well. But in particular, there are over 20 articles on Afghanistan, there are articles on superpowered detente, and a lot of articles on India, etc., which we will find there. So with the strong support and motivation provided by my family, especially our son, Shaikh Ahmad Sheikh, my second son, he's not here today. He unfortunately is not here, but he works in London. And he was a strong motivator. He said, we can't leave this work just sitting here. We have to do something and get it out there. And he's extremely happy that we have come to this point. So I wish he was here. But with his help, we digitized all the writings, and we brought the articles and the digitized manuscript on Kashmir to Ambassador Nadeem Riaz here at the Institute. And together with Arish and Aiza and the team, with all the referencing and editing work, here we are with these two books. And thanks, Kamran, for writing the foreword for the Kashmir book. That is really appreciated, and your personal experiences and insights with my father. So Ambassador Altaf Sheikh was born in 1925, and he grew up in the pre-partition era and joined the Pakistan Foreign Service in 1948, full of enthusiasm and commitment to the newly born state of Pakistan. So he was a real nationalist, if you can call it. He was really keen on understanding what is happening in our region. And he served 40 years in the Foreign Service, 22 years as an ambassador. His first posting as a young officer was to Ankara. Some of the pictures might be here, where he developed lifelong friendships with a number of young Turks. He met them again in later life when he served as ambassador in Turkey during the mid-70s and the mid-80s. In fact, his final posting as ambassador to Turkey in the 80s was at the specific request of the Turkish president, Kenan Evren, during a meeting with President Zia. When Kenan Evren asked President Zia, "Where is my friend Altaf Sheikh?" And as a result, Ambassador Altaf Sheikh was transferred from Canada back to Turkey for a second stint as ambassador at the specific request of the president of Turkey, much to our delight as a family, because we all love Turkey. And later in life, my wife and I, she's right here, Ambarina over there, my wife and I also served in Turkey during 2000 to 2004, and we experienced the a very warm friendship of the Turks. And some of our children have Turkish names. Turan is sitting here, my elder son. Turan is a very Turkish name. So it shows you our love for the country deriving from my father's experiences. So my father, like all good diplomats, loved history and culture. He was humble. He had an inquisitive and analytical mind. He was a great conversationalist, and he wanted to share his knowledge and understanding of geopolitics. Hence, we have these two books, through which we hope to share his thinking and legacy with research analysts, such as the team here, with policymakers, and with those who have an interest in geopolitics. My friend Mansoor and I, sitting here, we are constantly discussing geopolitics and which book are you reading now? You know? So it's hopefully going to be, you know, something that a lot of people will share. A few words on the two books. The manuscript on Kashmir was written in 1990, which is also the year he died, but you know, he wrote it earlier in the year, right after a major uprising had started in the state. The uprising started in 1989 in a major way after a flawed election earlier on. Subsequent developments, resulted in 40 to 50,000 deaths over the next decade in Kashmir. The conflict is still ongoing and simmering. There was a subsequent 10-week conflict between Pakistan and India in 1998 in the Kargil-Siachen area. There has been no progress in multiple back-channel negotiations, I understand. In February 2019, the Pulwama suicide attack by a young militant killed 40 Indian soldiers, and then there was a subsequent Air Force incident where we shot down 2 Indian planes. So the tensions have just continued. To quote a Kashmiri journalist, Tariq Mir, who was writing in August 2020, he said, "The people of Kashmir have lived with a sense of loss, oppression, and helplessness for as long as they can remember. Modi has begun an assault on the land, natural resources, culture, and people of the state." Our current Prime Minister has referred to Kashmir as a burning issue in an interview only in January this year. So my point is that all these years, 75 years of partition, serious escalation after 2019, and here we are still with a burning unresolved issue. And I hope that this book will help to provide some historical perspective on these matters, completely unresolved. The second book, as we've said, is a collection of 120 articles. The most interesting ones to many will be the ones on Afghanistan, India, and the relationships between the superpowers. And why do I say that is Ambassador Sheikh was ambassador in Kabul in December 79 when the Soviets invaded. He was an eyewitness to those events. Some of the articles, and one in particular, actually describes that particular event when he was there and saw what happened. There are some articles which were written in 88, 89 when the Soviets withdrew in 88. So there are a number of articles about the Geneva Accords and the Soviet perspective and what's happening after they withdraw. And this is interesting because of what's happening in the world today. I mean, we had the Taliban victory in Afghanistan a couple of years ago, and we have the current ongoing war in Ukraine, which is again a kind of a clash between West and, if you want to call it East, it's not East, but let's say a Eurasian clash going on. So what we will read in those articles is continued today in a different form around the world. And that's why I think many people may find them interesting. Regarding the articles on India, I think it was mentioned earlier, my father was director on the India desk in the early 60s, in the years leading up to the 65 war. So he saw the events developing towards a war situation in 65, and then in 71, when he was in 72, he was 71, 72 additional secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, responsible for the political side, and was involved in the work related to the Simla Accord. So he saw the Pakistan-India situation close up 2 or 3 times. The other articles in there are on the Middle East, on Sri Lanka, on Turkey, in fact, on the Turkish elections as well, Kamran. So, so you have some more reading to do. But I hope you will all enjoy reading them, and I hope many other people will benefit. And I'm really happy that we can take forward my father's legacy and keep his work alive and shared with so many people through this effort. I really want to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. So thank you all once again.
Thank you, Nader. Arish, would you like to add a few things?
Hello, everyone. My senior co-panelists have shed ample light on what's in the book and about the author. So I would not dwell too much on that, and I would just describe the editorial journey that we went through while editing this book. With both of these books, with each one of them, we had a distinct set of challenges. The book on Kashmir, we received part of it typed, and part of it was handwritten. So the handwritten one, we also had to type, and the typed ones, we also had to type in Microsoft Word, and then we had to proofread them. And another challenge with the Kashmir book was that there were a lot of quotes, a lot of references from primary sources like UN documents and other documents. And for those, we had to then dig out the original references as well, because Ambassador Saab had written those manuscripts with hand, and at times the exact sources were not mentioned in there. And then the added challenge was that the references that we had to find had to be from that era in which it was written, like from 88 to 1990. So that was the primary challenge that we faced when we were editing the book on Kashmir. The other one on the nation articles, a lot of those articles that we received were in print form, like print copies of the Nation newspaper, and the exact page of the newspaper on which that article was produced. So at times we didn't have the date of the newspaper with us, like which date exactly this particular article was published. And Nadir Saab was all the time very instrumental in helping us with all that information. We would send him back the manuscripts, and at times it would really surprise me as the editor that Nadir Saab would so thoroughly check each and every manuscript, and he would get back to us with comments, and he would find out the small little flaws in there, and then we would correct it. And it was indeed a great pleasure working with a team like that, Nadir Saab and Shayan as well, like he would come back and would tell us what was missing, or there was a little typo here and there. So we really received a lot of support from Nadir Saab in this, and it's been a long journey, as you pointed out, sir. And it has all been really pleasure and an honor, and we're really proud to be a part of this effort. And in that, I would also like to thank my team who really helped me with this work. Aiza, my sub-editor, who was really instrumental in all the initial typing and proofreading of the various drafts. Then we also had two very talented interns with us, Nabia Imran and Willa Zainab. I think both of them are not here today, but they really also contributed to the typing and proofreading of the manuscripts. And last but not the least, our assistant in the editorial section, who really helped us with the formatting of the manuscripts, and also coordination with the printing press, Sayyid Salim Raza Saab. So I would like to thank all of them as well. And we're really, really proud and honored to be a part of this effort. Thank you so much.
I think the floor is open if anyone wants to ask questions or comment or make a speech, or You want to make an announcement about the tea and coffee? Yes. Yeah.
Nadir, it's good to see you, and my colleague Kamran, Nadeem, of course. I never served with Ambassador Altaf Sheikh in any official capacity, but I knew him quite well. And that was because in the ministry, well, at one stage, I think he was my additional secretary when I was a director. But I used to be interpreter for the president for French. And I used to go there to the president's house at that time quite often. And Ambassador Altaf Sheikh would be there, and he encouraged me to improve my French, actually. He would tell me stories about previous sort of events in the Foreign Office and his own experiences. So I have very fond memories of Ambassador Altaf Sheikh and your mother. Both of them were very dear to us, and they were very affectionate to me and to my wife. And I'm so happy that you have brought out this book, these two books, because he was prolific in his writings and in all his views and ideas. And it was a loss that he went so early, because I think he should have been with us to guide us and to mentor us for much longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Share my experience of this interpretership. As I told you, I used to go for a class 1 hour a day or miss some days, etc. So, and I normally took it quite leisurely, like nothing is going to happen. So the day I completed 1 year, Mr. Sheikh told me that you will have to start interpreting for me from now on.
1 year.
After 1 year. And I was absolutely taken aghast. I said, I don't know Turkish that well. So he says, you have 3 more months. And after that, you will start interpreting for me. So the next 3 months, I really did all the hard work because he wouldn't relent. And I thought because Shaukat Umar was there, and he didn't interpret. So I thought I'll have a good time, knowing some Turkish, but not that well. But it was Altaf Sheikh who really pressed me. And, thanks to him, I really came to know some good Turkish. Yeah.
In fact, I tried to take formal lessons. I worked 4 years in Citibank in Istanbul, and every Friday had a Turkish teacher in my office and kept it going. And I could understand the Turkish conversations in the meetings, in the business meetings, eventually without interpretation. And in fact, Rini, my wife over there, she's without lessons better than me because of all the social and market interaction with people. But last May, when we were in Turkey, we were conversing with the taxi drivers, and they were, of course, discussing inflation and the price of bread in Turkey, which is the current topic. But I think it's quite important to try and keep the languages going, Also, to keep Alzheimer's away, you should learn languages, right? Yeah. I mean, one comment that I can add about my father's attitude was when I graduated from university in London in 1976. So I said to him, I want to do the Foreign Service exams and also join the Foreign Service. And he said, you know what? Why don't you do something different? So he said, look, I'm here. I'm in the Foreign Service. I'm serving the government. You go to the private sector. But although I became a banker in 1980 and I worked for Citibank for 39 years, it was in fact like the Foreign Service because I worked in 7 countries. And in those 7 countries, my wife and I felt we were also representing Pakistan. And we felt very conscious that people should see us as representatives of our country as well. And in fact, there's another incident. I mean, my classmate and friend Akbar Zaib is sitting here. Akbar, when I was posted in Islamabad in '91, and I went to Uzbekistan representing Citibank on the instructions of Mr. Shaukat Aziz, you helped me by calling up the embassy in Tashkent. And I was actually carrying a letter from the Minister of Economic Affairs, Sardar Asif, to the Minister of Economic Affairs of Uzbekistan. So I was working for Pakistan while I was on a Citibank job. And Akbar, you helped me with that as well. So we felt we were representing our country even in my job at Citibank. So in a way, I also joined the Foreign Service, including being in Turkey. Yeah, so we are very proud of that. Honorary member, thank you. Right.
Do we have any more comments, questions regarding how the books were printed? Aiza, do you want to say something with all the hard work which you have done?
Well, I thought of myself not as a banker, but as somebody who's also interested in geopolitics, because I can tell you as a banker, you have to know geopolitics too. I mean, just to mention, I worked 6 years in Ukraine as CEO for Citibank in Ukraine and 6 years in Egypt as CEO for Citibank in Egypt. And if you don't know geopolitics, you can't work in these countries, right? So you have to be absolutely aware of the geopolitical situation. I must add that I have a number of friends here, I think 5 or 6 from my class from Pearson College. Thank you guys for coming. And two of you are in Foreign Service, guys, Akbar and Sher Bahadur. And thank you. So we have our school friends here as well. Thank you very much. I invited his wife. I met her, but they said they'll be in Lahore. Yeah. So I think we have tea and coffee. Yeah. Sure. You know, thank you for that question. I was in boarding school from the age of 6.5 with my friends who are sitting here, 6 of them, 5, 6 of them. So I did not live with my parents after the age of 6.5. However, every summer holidays when I came home, and through the years, I felt that my father had real empathy, sympathy for people. I felt that he could understand how people should be dealt with at a human level. And I could see in his social events how he would converse with people and engage with people. So he was actually very warm-hearted and very genuine in his feelings. There was, you know, you were basically dealing with a very open person when you talk to him. I don't remember him ever really hitting me or being mean to me. He was a kind person, you know. And one thing I can say, this question of geopolitics, and I said earlier that every diplomat is also interested in history and culture. When I was a kid in the summer holidays, when we were 8, 9, 10 years old, he would take us to see castles or historical places. I had to write an essay in the evening on what I had seen, even when I was 10 years old. So Kamran, I sympathize with you, you know, having to fix I had to write an essay. What did you see today? Which king made this castle? What happened? And then I imposed the same rules on my kids, you know. And you have to suffer my history lectures, you know. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having all of you here for this book launch of these 2 books by Ambassador Altaf Sheikh. Now we will move out into the foyer and we will have the tea and coffee with some refreshments. And Nader has been kind enough to sign at least 20 copies of each book. So please feel free to take them. And if a book is not signed, Nader is there to sign it for you. Thank you very much.